In the drowsy town of Willow Creek, where the nights were as silent as the days were bright, the news of the disappearance of Elizabeth Harmon spread like a wildfire, disrupting the town's tranquil life. Elizabeth, a lively librarian with a boundless love for literature, had not been seen since she left her weekly book club the previous Thursday night. Detective Arthur Penn, with his weary eyes and a dogged determination, was called upon to untangle the mystery. He started at the library where Elizabeth worked, a cozy building with walls lined with books and the faint scent of aged paper. Clues were few, nothing but a bookmark oddly placed in a volume of Poe's poems, pointing toward the telltale heart. It was unlike Elizabeth to leave a book unattended or misplace a marker. Detective Penn pocketed the bookmark, mulling over its significance. Next were the interviews. Friends spoke warmly of Elizabeth, and none could imagine her leaving without a word. Her colleagues nodded in agreement as they painted a picture of a kind-hearted woman who lived for her books and the secrets they held. It was there, in the quiet whispers of concern, that Detective Penn caught wind of a brief, haunting love affair Elizabeth had with a mysterious out-of-towner, a man no one seemed to know much about. They met at the book club, speaking in hushed tones about Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, while the rest discussed the latest bestsellers. A visit to the book club led Penn to a lead. The last book Elizabeth had passionately argued over was Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. She had vehemently opposed the notion that desperation could drive a good person to commit an evil act, a point she debated with her mysterious lover. Penn scrutinized the club's registry and found a name that appeared only in the last few months: Vincent Marlowe. Penn traced Vincent to a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. Confronting him, Penn's senses were flooded with the thousands of tiny tells he'd learned to decipher over his career. Vincent's speech was hurried and his eyes evasive. When questioned, Vincent professed his ignorance regarding Elizabeth's disappearance, yet couldn't explain the collection of books in Elizabeth's handwriting in his room. In a stroke of inspiration, Penn remembered the bookmark and the exact quote it indicated. "It is the beating of his hideous heart." Under the bed, the detective found a trapdoor that led to a concealed cellar. Inside, in a cramped, dark corner, sat Elizabeth, terrified but alive. Vincent confessed to an obsession with Elizabeth, her mind, her love for literature. In a twisted imitation of Raskolnikov, he believed that he could commit the perfect crime by imprisoning her, possessing her intellect for himself alone. Elizabeth, however, armed with her understanding of the human psyche through the books she cherished, had kept herself sane by reciting her favorite passages, believing in rescue. Days later, while Elizabeth recovered surrounded by family, friends, and countless books donated by the townspeople, Detective Penn sat alone in the library, the bookmark in his hand. In solving the case, he couldn't help but ponder over the darkness dwelling in the human soul and the light of hope books could provide. The bookmark was placed back into the telltale heart, as closure, both for Elizabeth's ordeal and Detective Penn's rumination on the narrow line between fiction and reality. With the case closed, Penn stepped out into the night, leaving the library and Elizabeth's nightmare behind him.